Why is India currently getting so much hate online, on social media, and elsewhere? Is it Hindu phobia? Is it something else? In this video, we're going to decode the national karma of India, as well as the karma and past life of Narendra Modi, its leader, in order to understand what's going on and to see how India can resolve this challenging time that is happening right now with regards to its perception in the collective consciousness and its role in the evolution of humanity as well. So let's go. Right, so if you have been active on social media recently, surely you will have noticed the wave of hate, of kind of India bashing and India hate that is on all various social media platforms, especially on X right now. It's very prominent. All of these memes and all of this shit posting, in some cases quite literally, jokes about lack of sanitation or whatever dangerous areas of being, that it's very dangerous or it's not very developed or whatever the case may be. There's just so much going on right now. And even an entire term has been invented, Pajit, which didn't exist before. It's sort of like an N-word, but for Indians. And this has become really big on social platforms in very recently, over the last couple of years, this year really, but since 1 or 2 years, 2-3 years. And this is an issue that warrants attention, and we have to look at what's happening here because this is something that's happening within collective consciousness. So there has to be a karmic reason for this wave or for this phenomenon. And it is actually, in this video, this is what we're going to do. We're going to decode India's karma to understand why this is happening right now to Indians and to India, as well as what the underlying issues are and how it's going to evolve in the coming steps. What is the real challenge here that India and its leader have to solve and have to tackle in order to resolve things, resolve this karmic issue, and elevate to the next level? Because I say it already, India has a very big role to play for the future of humanity. But in order to unlock that, it's important to resolve this karmic issue that we're going to be discussing and decoding on this video. So make sure to watch this video till the end. You will also find out who Narendra Modi was in his past life, plus some other very notable Indian figures and personalities when you watch this video till the end. So first, let's understand what this whole controversy is about. If you haven't seen it yet, there's just a lot going on right now on social media. It's very notable. I'm not necessarily going to get into all of it. But just as an example, recently there was a poll on X amongst America First kind of supporters, Trump supporters, and it said, would you rather see more illegal Mexicans or more legal Indians in the country, in the US? And a large majority said illegal Mexicans. We'd prefer having illegal Mexicans over legal Indians, right? And it's just, there's so much going on right now, off the charts right now with the hate posts and with the very notable diminishment and decrease of the popularity and the reputation of India and Indians online. It's really, really notable. I mean, I can tell you from a personal story or from my personal perspective, I personally have great love for India. I traveled to both North and South and had the great experiences there. And I look forward to future exchanges and developments in India. But nowadays, when I talk to people about traveling to India, the response is very strange. The response is oftentimes, are you crazy? I can't imagine anything worse than this. I'd rather go anywhere else on the planet apart from India. And this is very, very new. It did not exist 3 years, 4 years, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. People did not have this image. It's very new. Something has happened. Something has shifted in these last 3 years, right? 2 to 3 years. And the image, the reputation has gone down the drain, right? So let's understand where this is coming from. And there's multiple factors that we have to understand. There's not just one. There's several factors. I will tell you the factors first, and then we will look at the astrology to understand how things is karmically connected. And eventually we will look at what the underlying issues are and how India can resolve all of these and is supposed to resolve all of these in order to unlock its higher purpose. So when you want to see when this whole issue started, when at least, let's say, the bashing started around the term Pajit, which is being used, it's kind of an N-word that's being used for Indians. You can go on Google Analytics or Google Trend, and you can check when did this word spike in its usage. And you will see that it started in October 23. October 23 is when the word suddenly goes up. Suddenly a lot of people are using it. Before, not really. And since then, it stayed high, right? What happened in October 23? Well, of course, October 23 was when Hamas started its incursion or its attack on Israel, which then led to the conflict, Israel and Hamas conflict, Israel's actions and in Gaza, which were the consequence of that, and which then have been on everybody's minds, and have a lot of people have been very, very sad and very, very much moved by the horrific scenes that came out of, that have been coming out of the Holy Land since then. And the whole world population has sort of been taking a stance or been pushed to take a stance in this issue. And what's very notable is that India was really the only global South country, the only country in the global South, which a large portion of its people have been taking Israel's side very vocally, very openly, especially on social media. A lot of the people who are kind of the more fringe or the more radical Hindutva people, who are, the very outspoken pro-Hindu, activists who are in the current government as well, in the current NDA government, they have been very outspoken on this. They kind of took this as a personal affront because they're seeing themselves as opposing the Islamic influence, and they very automatically took Israel's side. And there was a very strange posts that people did, a bit cringe-worthy posts of Indians supporting from far away. And the global South in general didn't react well to this. Why? Because, well, the conflict, without even going into the details of the conflict between, that's happening in Palestine, the issue is that the global South, for the global South, Israel is perceived as being an extension of the West, or being an extension of the existing unipolar Western world order, right? Which is why the global South, Africa, South America, and Asia, the majority of the populations and all of the states, basically all of the leaders of those states, almost all of them with some exceptions, right, see this issue as, have kind of natural sympathies for Palestine, not for Israel, right? And India was the only state, the only global South state, which took very vocally, its people took very vocally the side of Israel. Not even the government, right? The government's been neutral, but the people, right? And this has led to people from the global South, the Middle, Chinese already had issues, the Middle Easterners just got much, much bigger issues, and Africans also came in suddenly, also having issues suddenly with Indians. But then you're going to ask yourself, so, okay, that explains the global South. What about the West? The West is allied with Israel. The West is close to Israel. The West shouldn't have a problem, even though the people, but governments at least, right? The West shouldn't have a problem. Westerners shouldn't have a problem with India. How come then that during this same time, the West also, or Westerners also, started to have this huge animosity with Indians? So as it happens, so happens, during this same time frame, there has been a huge problem, a huge issue, a concern, especially of the Anglosphere, of people in English-speaking countries, the US, Canada, and UK, and so on, of so-called reverse colonialism from the Indians, that the Indians are taking over. The Indians are coming here, and they're kind of nepotistic in their groups, and they're taking over, and they have a plan to, kind of sinister plan to subvert our countries and take over, right? So there is some real stats around this. Obviously, if you look at it, there's Indians are very successful in North America. In the U.S., Indians are the most successful ethnic group of any group, really, in terms of income, average income. There's lots of CEOs of top companies. I think the CEOs of Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM, and so on and so forth. They're all Indian or Indian American. And recently, this came to a head, this whole debate, with the debate that was very vocal around H-1B visas, right? Where Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, they kind of stepped in. They had this big debate defending H-1B visas, and 90% of those, a large majority, goes to Indians, right? And the base of Trump supporters, they were very vocal against Indians or against H-1B visas, basically more Indians, against more Indians. This is when the poll came out that I mentioned at the beginning that put the question of would you like to see more illegal Mexicans or legal Indians? And a lot of people said we would like to rather have illegal Mexicans because we don't want Indians, right? And there's been more. There's been more. There was a famous post recently that now Indians own more real estate in London, in the city of London, than British people. They have now the largest group of people owning real estate. And there was a lot of debate around this, Indians kind of gleefully posting around this, and a lot of other Westerners and British people being very upset, coming out with all the Pajit, memes and so on. And the hate just gone really, really high. The hate levels are going really, really high. And the reputation has gone very low for Indians. They're just getting bashed everywhere. And it's not just now it's the West and the global South. And you got basically everybody. That's everybody, right? The global South and the West. It's almost everybody now that is bashing Indians. So when you have something like this happen, you have to ask yourself, what's going on in the astrology that would warrant something like this, right? How can this be? How can this be that you have like everybody suddenly against India? So when we look at the astrology, we should be able to see this. Now, look at the astrology, and you see that in this time that we mentioned, in this time frame, basically starting 2023, right? And you see here 23, here's October 23, and you have, since 23, Saturn is transiting the 12th house of India's national horoscope, okay? So when you have Saturn in the 12th house, this is a few years in which you are going to have to deal with difficult past karma. That's the signature. Any difficult past life karma, any difficult past karma that you have, it's going to have to dealt with. It's not a nice time, those 3 years when Saturn is in your 12th house. Now, in the national horoscope, in the national chart, it means that, well, India is facing some issues around its past karma. Okay, what is this past karma? We're going to go deeper into this in a second to understand how to resolve it. But let's first see how long this goes. So this goes on until 26, sort of 26-ish, right? 26, then it's out. Saturn is out, right? Here's the 12th house. Here's Saturn is out, right? So we had basically 23 till 26. And then are we out of the woods? Is this over, this whole issue? No, because then going into 26 starts a very, very dramatic transit for India, which is Pluto is going to hit the sun of India. You see here, Pluto hits the sun. And at the same time, Pluto is also squaring the moon of India. You see here? So Pluto on the sun means a deep transformation of the very nature of the state, including the leadership of the state. And Pluto squaring the moon means a very deep and emotional and difficult challenge to the people of the nation, right? The people of the nation are going to go through a deep, revolting, challenging process where they have to overcome some deep-seated hatred or deep-seated problems that are very emotional and very unconscious, and they need to be transformed throughout this time when you have Pluto on the sun and on the moon, right? So this is very, very significant, and this goes on for 2 years, like 2 or 3 years, right? 26, 27, it goes on 26, 27, right? So let's put this together, and what does it mean? We have these 2 or 3 years, 3 years right now, where this past karma, who is India's past karma with? Past karma of India as a nation is, on the one hand, unresolved past karma. We're talking about unresolved past karma. Unresolved or difficult past karma is really only with 2 different groups. One is with the invaders who came from Central Asia and the Middle East, the, Turco-Persian invaders who were Islamic mostly, right? And who set up the Mughal Empire and the Sultanate of Delhi and lots of different groups, sultanates that they ruled India for a very, very long time, right? For many, many years and had like a large empire, created a large Indian empire really. And then with the Western invaders being the British Raj, right? The British crown who the British played after Nadir Shah's invasion. Nadir Shah was the last great Persian emperor, and the British kind of outsmarted the successors of Nadir Shah, played the Afghans against the Persians, and also used them to enter into India, set up the British Raj, took over India, and won that kind of race and that game, and set up the Raj, right? The British rule over India, which in many ways, we know now, looking back into history, was very damaging for India. It was very, very damaging for India, right? Before that, under Mughal Empire, India was the largest economy in the world. It was responsible for, I think, 30% of the economy, of the GDP, 25 to 30% of the GDP of the world. And this fell all the way down to 1%, something around this during the British rule, right? So it extremely reduced because the British were basically using India as a place for resources, cheap resources, and that's it. They were not allowing independent development of industry and anything like that, or they were actually just extracting from the industry that was previously there. So now that being said, there's these two difficult karmic paths, right? They're both difficult. They're both challenging. They're not integrated. They're not completely worked through, right? So, and you can see that now in the relationships that I just said before that are now problematic with India's activities. Now, and you can see this as well when you look at the chart and have some of the asteroids in here, right? Just to show you that what I've been saying is exactly written in the chart like this, with the nuances of the story as well, because we saw that Saturn is transiting currently the 12th house here, right? And as it's transiting the 12th house, it's making an opposition to India's natal Saturn, right? And from the 12th house Pisces here, look at the asteroids that are lined up here. You got Achilles and Hubris and Israel and Harmonia, right? So India's harmony, right, is being disturbed by being hit at the Achilles heel. The Achilles heel is the weak spot, right? The weak spot that you have. And that weak spot is somehow to do with Israel, right? Or its relation, or its kind of, position and relationship in this whole conflict. And that's kind of triggering its weak spot and its past life or its past karma, the past national collective karma. Just like a person has a personal karma, you also have a collective karma, obviously, right? On a much larger scale. And that's being triggered, and then what? The next challenge is after this whole thing, it comes to the fore, it needs to be thought about and dealt with, and then right away after, as I showed you, 26, 27, comes this extremely difficult and transformative time for India. Extremely difficult and transformative, right? Where everything can change. The constitution can change. The whole setup of the country can change. The territory can change. Kashmir, could completely change. Could be taken or lost or and so on. Pakistan confrontation, I talked about this in previous videos as well, is very, very heightened around that time as well. So it's a real difficult, transformative time that's coming 26 and 27. And it's going to be around redefining the essence of the nation. And who's going to be at the helm of India during that time? It's Narendra Modi. So it's very important that we look at Narendra Modi and understand who he is, and if he has the tools and the ability to deal with these challenges that are coming up, right? Is he the right person to deal with these challenges? Can he do this? In order to answer this question, we have to look at his past life. We have to look at who Narendra Modi was, what he's bringing into his life, and if he can deal with the karmic challenges of the nation, of the collective, that are his personal challenges as well. So before I tell you about Narendra Modi, I want to first illuminate for you my personal relationship with India. Because as I said to you before, I have a strong personal relationship with India. But I didn't tell you about the karmic backgrounds of it, which I will tell you now. Well, on the one hand, you could say that my ancestors, right? My ancestors, the Parsis, Zoroastrian Parsis, who came into India, they are now very successful. The Parsi community is probably the most successful community amongst Indian communities. They're very small, but very, 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 very established, with people like Tata and Poonawalla and Godrej and so Wadia and so on and so forth. But apart from that, apart from the sort of genetic connection, I actually have a direct karmic relationship with India as well. Because, and I haven't revealed this yet before, but I'm going to reveal more in the coming videos as well. Because in one of my past incarnations, I was Abu Rayhan Biruni, he was a Persian universal scholar, an astrologer and historian and scientist. He made some great developments and discoveries. And Biruni, he was forced to go into India together with the conqueror, the great conqueror, Mahmud of Ghazni, right? Who is known right now, as a brutal conqueror of India. Actually, I have had to continue that karmic relationship in this incarnation in very interesting ways as well with his incarnation, with who he is in this incarnation. Maybe I'll leave this for some future elaborations and explorations. But Biruni is interesting and important to know. As Biruni, I had to spend time in India. And Biruni, he had a profound respect for and admiration for the Indian culture. Unlike a lot of the other conquerors who came, Biruni actually took very, very seriously the Indian culture. He saw some great revelations that were of importance for all of humanity in India. And upon leaving India, he wrote a book called Tarikh Hind. And this book is considered, to this day, the foundation of Indology. Basically the foundation of the study of India, right? So you will understand that there is a personal connection here which goes beyond just an interest as somebody who has some, far away interest. Now, coming back to India, when we look at Modi, we see somebody who is very, very integral and central to the idea and the definition of India and the invention of India as a new power as well, right? So Modi is the central figure in Indian politics, maybe all the way since Jawaharlal Nehru. Maybe since Nehru, he's been the most important figure. And such a figure, you will want to see clearly that there is a karmic connection. I have had a look at his charts. I've meditated upon his karma. And the clear insight and download that I have received is that Narendra Modi was, in his past life, Shivaji Maharaj, the great Indian ruler who united and fought, against the conquerors, against the Mughal Empire specifically, and who had very heroic wars and skirmishes, and with many different tactics, guerrilla tactics, and very smart ways. He brought together Indians who wanted to resist the at that time brutal rule of the Mughals under Aurangzeb. Now, other people who are today in India, their karma is intertwined as well. I will just give you a couple of more so you have some insights. One person who is very important in Indian history or in Indian society today is Gautam Adani. Adani, obviously, with Adani Group, is one of the large billionaire industrialists who has extreme power and who has been backing Modi, but also who has been creating a lot of trouble for Modi. There's some, there is a controversy, there is a, let's say, a multi-sided relationship there, right? He's an ally, but he's also causing trouble for Modi. And Gautam Adani, he continues his history as Netaji Palkar. He was Netaji Palkar, who was a confidant and companion of Modi at that time as Shivaji Maharaj. And Netaji Palkar, even though he fought on the side of Shivaji, he actually had a brief time where he changed sides, and he went and he supported Aurangzeb, and he caused a lot of trouble, a lot of problems. And even though afterward he was forgiven when he came back, but he caused a lot of problems. And Aurangzeb, who is today incarnated as Salman Khan. So you will see even, the histories continue, even with regards to the relationships. They always have to go into new levels and always have to go into new forms. And the souls incarnate as those and in those positions in which they can continue their karmic history, oftentimes in very different fields. So a lot of the Mughal rulers are actually incarnated as Bollywood actors today. So that being said, there is now a better understanding from us. There should be a better understanding from us what the challenge and the task of Modi is. Because Modi, as Shivaji, he is the symbol of the resistance of the indigenous or the original Indian culture versus and against the adversity of the conquerors, of the outside conquerors. But Modi today, he actually has the task, despite having brought this very energy up again in the current and contemporary India, he has the task of reaching out to the communities and creating a new and more inclusive and integral form of the Indian society in the next years. This will be his great task. This will be his great task. He will have to do this, or he will fail. As I showed you, there will be very, very bad consequences for the whole existence and continuation of India. A very, very hard transit coming in 26 and 27. This is going to be Modi's task. He will have to reach out to and integrate, for instance, to tell you more concretely, he will have to integrate the Sufis. He will have to reach out to the Sufis, the Sufi community. He's already started to do that, but he will have to really strengthen them and bring them in, because that's the only way that India, a country, a continent, a subcontinent with so many Islamic populations, such a large Islamic population, if you count Pakistan and Bangladesh to it, it's over 500 million people, right? So this is the only way that India can actually become an advanced and sophisticated and strong place, right? If there is an integration that happens, and this can only happen through bringing the Sufis. The Sufis are basically the tolerant, spiritual side. They believe in the unity of all religions, Din Elahi. They believe in they believe that they don't believe in superiority. They don't believe in their own superiority versus the Deobandis and the Salafis, right? The Deobandis and the Salafis, which are unfortunately getting stronger and stronger, but they are the people those type of Islamists basically are the people who have to be replaced, and they have to be, they have to be overcome, because those type of Islamists, they don't tolerate anybody apart from themselves, right? They don't tolerate anybody else, nothing else. They can only live with other Islamists, right? And even that is dangerous. They're basically a death cult, right? Which is very, very dangerous for the entire world, not just for the Islamic world, for the entire world. That type of dark spirituality is very dangerous for the entire world. So India has actually a chance to not just resolve its own community problem, but to even contribute to changing the whole world for the better by influencing the entire Islamic world. India has, again, hundreds of millions of people who belong to the Islamic faith, right? And has an immense power in influencing the entire Islamic world as well. The entire Islamic world, India has that power, which currently, it's not aware of it at all, because it is busy in redefining itself as separation from the Islamic world. But if that task succeeds to bring Sufism, the much more tolerant form, basically, the much more inclusive and tolerant form of the Islamic faith to the fore, this will be a great service for all of humanity that can come out of India, and it will be a very, very powerful and needed step in order to resolve India's national karma, right? So in order to do this, a couple of things have to happen, obviously. So India has to become more aware of its Persian heritage, specifically its Persian heritage. Currently, 20 to 30% of the words in Hindi, they are Persian origin. They are of Persian. This is not Arabic. This is not Islamic or Arabic. This is Persian origin, right? So there is a shared Indo-Iranian heritage there, which is its entry point. And then there is the connection, obviously, with the Sufi spiritualities and so on, who were created by Persian and Indian spirits together, oftentimes in direct exchange together with, for instance, with the Tantrika, the Kashmir Shaivism, or of other Advaita Vedanta and other types of Indian spiritualities, very centrally Indian spirituality. So this has to change. This has to change over the coming years. And there is a sign for this that it can change, that Salman Khan, the actor, in this incarnation has been, even though he's not a friend of Narendra Modi, if you look at their charts, you will see the karmic past of being enemies very clearly written in their chart. Very clearly written in the chart. But even though these are karmic enemies, Narendra Modi and Salman Khan have been cordial in this lifetime. They have been started to understand that they need to somehow overcome things and they need to be cordial, right? So there are signs that this is possible. And Modi himself has made these steps to show that he is able to do these steps, to take these steps. And secondly, India will have to become much more independent of the Anglosphere. Much more independent of the Anglosphere than it is currently. And this will happen automatically because in the coming years, there will be clashes between Trump and Modi. This is clearly visible in the astrology as well. Trump will ask certain things of Modi, which Modi will not be willing to deliver. And this will lead to a certain repositioning as well, with India becoming more independent, India has to, as I said before, work through and work by and overcome its karma. Not just with the conquerors from the Middle East, also with the Anglosphere. And this is a process that has to happen. Now, when this happens over the coming years, I'm telling you of the best and most positive outcome of the coming years, which Narendra Modi is able to lead. If he is able to lead India through these challenges, then what will happen is that India will be able to, finally, reach its purpose, which is to deliver to all of humanity its vast riches and its vast spiritual heritage. Its vast spiritual heritage, which is infinitely deep, and of which humanity can greatly benefit, but only if and once India has solved its collective karma. Now, there are other people here in the story that will play important roles, and there is Rahul Gandhi, and there's others, many others still. It's a complex and complicated story. There's Pakistan, there's Bangladesh. This is not an easy story. This is going to be a very complex story over the next years, and in future videos, we will look at different aspects of this story. Just know that it is important to have that goal in mind of that unification or of that higher spiritual development that the Indian people can reach. And as they're working on it, know that you have an ally, an old ally of many lifetimes in your corner. So I look forward to future explorations with you of all of these topics. And let me know in the comments what you'd like to see next, which aspects you'd like to look at more, which characters in the development of the story. Let me know in the comments and we can have a conversation around this, and I look forward to creating more and connecting more with you as well. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe to this channel, like this video, and take care of yourself. Be blessed.